Hey, welcome back. For the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing a series of bird tutorials. Today, I want to show you how I designed the layout for those 9 birds that we'll be painting, just to ensure that you get a good design and you're not diving into your watercolor painting, potentially ruining your expensive paper. For this video, I want to show you how I'm composing all 9 of these birds into one complete painting. I was looking at my reference photos that I've collected from Pixabay and Unsplash of these beautiful birds, and I actually could not narrow it down to any less than 9 different birds. So I thought it would be really fun to create a collage of birds on my large piece of watercolor paper, something that could be framed as a collage and maybe look really pretty like an illustration. So that's going to take a little bit of design and planning before we jump in and just start painting birds all over the paper. So I want to kind of walk you guys through my process for planning out a design with 9 different birds. To start out, you're not going to want to just dive in and start painting right on your nice piece of watercolor paper. I'm trying out some new paper today. This is a Sennelier block and it's really big. It's almost 12 inches on each side. It's 11 4/5 inches square, and it's 140-pound cold pressed. It's a block, which means that the sides are glued down except for one little sliver here at the top where you can insert a credit card or a palette knife or something like that so that you can remove the paper. So when we're working on an expensive block like this, I think this block of paper was over $50 for 20 sheets. It's a good idea to do some planning ahead of time. So what I've done is I've taped together 2 pieces of printer paper that are almost the same size. You can see it's maybe a little shorter here. But what we'll do is plan out where we want our 9 birds to go. I have the pictures in front of me on a screen here. So I'm sure there's more professional ways to do this, but I opened up all of my reference photos in separate windows and just arranged them on my desktop. This helped give me an idea of placement, which direction I wanted their faces going, that sort of thing, sizing even. So it was just a rough placement right here on my desktop, and that made it easier for me to do my initial sketches from it. And some of the birds are looking this way and some of the birds are looking this way. And I want it to be designed so that all the birds are kind of looking in towards each other. We don't want them looking off the page. We want our viewer to be drawn inward and to kind of circle through the whole series of birds with their eyes. So that's where we're headed with this. That's the goal. What we'll do is start out by just doing some little thumbnail sketches showing all of the birds. When you're doing these sketches, they can be really messy. They don't have to be perfect. The idea here is just to get the gesture and the placement and the sizing where you want it, sort of like a thumbnail sketch. In fact, speaking of thumbnail sketches, why don't we start really small with just a sticky note and block out our little birds, and then we'll transfer that to our larger paper. Planning, right? Okay, so I have this little gray titmouse I want in the top left corner, and since we're doing 9 birds already, that looks too small. Let's think about this. One right here, one right here, here. It's gonna kind of look like a tic-tac-toe board, I'm realizing here, unless I sort of have them intersecting each other in some sort of way. So maybe if I make them large enough so that their legs and heads come close to each other, that might work. All right, so I've decided I don't want them really far apart from each other or it'll look too geometrical, too perfect. So let's try having these birds just be really large, like they're almost invading each other's space. This little titmouse here can be coming down with his little legs like that. And then there's the cardinal up here, sort of glaring at him. Then we've got the Baltimore Oriole sitting on a little branch over here. And then we have the regal red-breasted robin and a goldfinch right here in the center, kind of keeping watch over everybody. And then we'll put the bluebird in the center on the right. And I really like this catbird's pose. He's kind of looking up and away from the direction that his body is turning, which is really interesting, and I think will give this series a variety of poses for the birds. That's why I included the hummingbird as well, because he's just diving forward. There's so much action in his pose right here. And then one of my favorite birds, I just love its call. It's the mourning dove. So I had to include a mourning dove over here. Yes, I think I like this. I think I like the spacing. I perhaps made this guy a little too big. I'll tuck him back and make him a little smaller so he's not feeling so invasive and just a little better dispersed. But I really like that design. So once you have a thumbnail sketch, no bigger than that, you can start to really lay out the design of your birds. If you want to, you can do all your drawings ahead of time and then transfer or trace them to your watercolor paper. So I'm going to set this here so I can refer to that, tilt my board up a little bit. And since this is just scrap paper, it's okay if I make it really messy, if I have extra marks and stuff, it doesn't matter. This is your time to design. All right, so let's start again with the upper left side here with our little gray titmouse. And I'm looking at my thumbnail sketch for placement. Kind of helping me figure out the size of the bird. And it's almost looking like these birds will be just about life-size, maybe slightly smaller. Depends on which bird we're doing here. Cardinal, I want his head to be almost to the top, and he's got this vertical format. We see the back of his body, and already I feel like I'm making them too small compared to the size of this paper, so I might need to make adjustments here. Let's do the goldfinch in the middle. I'm trying to imagine what these birds look like in real life, what size they are, and if I could make them life-size, I'd be really happy with that. So I can already see that my cardinal needs to be bigger. He needs to be a lot bigger. Let's extend his tail into our goldfinch's space. You could even have some of these branches overlapping. Ooh, wouldn't that be cool if we had the branches all kind of connecting the bird somehow? They don't have to be completely connected, but maybe some markings suggesting crisscrossing branches. Okay, so let's put the Baltimore Oriole up here in the corner. Ooh, he's gonna be such a pretty orange to paint. I'm so excited to paint him. I've never painted a Baltimore Oriole. He's actually looking a little bit like he's sulking over here in the corner. Maybe we can perk him up a little bit with a smile or something. And then we have the bluebird. So I'm sticking really closely to following along with my thumbnail sketch over here. I don't want to deviate too much from that since I liked the design. But of course, the nice thing about doing this is that we can always modify if we need to. If we decide later to change it and there's something we didn't like about it, we can always change that before committing fully to our watercolor paper. And then let's put the big robin over here. This is a larger bird than some of the others, but we're not being exactly realistic here, are we? So we can lower his feet just a little bit. I tend to line things up sort of mathematically. That's the left side of my brain. So I have to try and balance it out with the right side of my brain by adding some asymmetry, because in art, asymmetry is much better generally. All right, so looking at this, I think I want to raise my goldfinch's head a little higher than the robin's, and I want the bluebird's head to be a little lower than the goldfinch's too. So more placement like that. And then again, I really love this catbird. He's just craning his neck to the side. He's got this wonderful curving motion to his body like that. The little feet. And then our beautiful mourning dove, so serene, just sitting here in the corner, all fluffed up and adorable. And then last but not least, we've got the hummingbird. We can make it a little smaller than the other birds. We just really want to get that action motion of the body. Okay, now I don't want his beak poking the catbird, so I think I'm going to need to move my catbird over a little bit, more like that. And of course, we'll need to put a flower here, perhaps behind the catbird, connecting the branch underneath him. Might be a bit ambitious to try to connect all these branches. They should probably all be separate. But something else we'll do that I think will be really fun will be to add some spatter effects surrounding our little birds. The next step will be to draw these designs onto our watercolor paper with much more detail in a final stage ready for painting. In fact, what you can do is take your messy drawing right here and just modify your drawings and make darker marks for your final drawing. Another cool thing about doing your drawing like this ahead of time is you can decide if you want to have lost and found edges. And of course, lost and found edges are when you have some edges that fade into the background and are not really visible, and some edges that are really dark and strong and pop forward. So for example, I want where this black front part of the face is to pop forward. So I'm going to have hard edges, of course, around the eye and on the front of the face here, perhaps on the top of the leg. But then where the bird's feathers are a little bit lighter, such as along the back of the head right here, I'm going to erase my pencil mark so that we can paint that super lightly so that it fades into the background as a lost edge. We can also do that where the feathers are really fluffy and light here on the back of the leg. So wherever I have a disconnected line, I'll know when I transfer it to my watercolor paper that that's going to be a lost edge. All right, so there's my very rough sketch. What we can do next is transfer the sketch to our watercolor paper using transfer paper. Or what you can do is just transfer enough information so that you have placement of all the birds and then more carefully and accurately draw them onto your watercolor paper. Since I'll be doing a separate tutorial for each one of these birds for you guys, I do want to show you how I draw them. So head over to the next video where we'll do a full tutorial on the titmouse.